Rabbi Zvi Engel, welcome back to the mountain.
Thank you. Great to be back.
Great to be back. Originally from Montreal, and came to the yeshiva in 92, 93.
92, 93 was my shana.
It's been a while, but you're a frequent visitor. You come back pretty often.
I do like to come back. I like to visit my old haunts, if you will, and to see a lot of continuity and a lot of chiddush, a lot that's new. But I'll tell you one thing that stays constant for me: the beautiful, crisp mountain air, sometimes punctuated by snowflakes. And here we are in Har Yehuda.
We just are finishing our major snowstorm, which, by the way, for people overseas, it's nothing. It's like a mini event, but here it's Armageddon. But did you have snow when you were here?
I did. Actually, in my year, there was a lot of buzz about an upcoming snowstorm, and concomitant to that, there was a great buzz about a question about a great Hasidic Rebbe who did amazing things for Klal Yisrael, and his legacy lives on. But the question and the buzz was, at that time, and then you have to look at it without the hindsight that we have, was he going to reveal himself to be the Melech HaMashiach? So the snow fell, and someone decided to build a humongous mitzvah tank with a humongous bust of the Rebbe, Zichat Tzaddik V'Kadosh Livracha. And the word going around all of the Bnei Yeshiva was, if Rav Amital asks how this happened, just say the snow fell this way. And it was, I still remember that. I saw a picture of my house in an album. It's like this, you know, and there was a real sense then, and I feel it even now, just having spent Shabbat here, of a real sense of camaraderie among the Bnei Yeshiva. And I think that's part of the Kol Torah that permeates the base medrash. That I carry with me even all these years later.
Okay, so you've been a beloved rabbi in congregation Or Torah in Skokie, one of the largest, certainly Jewish communities in the United States of America, and Parshas Teruma. What did you take from this Beit HaMikdash that has helped you over the last 30 years? What have you not taken? But what's the... Whittle it down for us.
Rav Mesh, there's no better parsha for me than Parshas Teruma. It's a parsha about figuring out how to take the experience of encountering a Kodesh Baruch Hu in a place suffused with Kedusha, and then going somewhere else and trying to build it or to foster it, develop it. It's what the Ramban is talking about in his magisterial essay, which of them are not, but you know, his parish at the beginning of the Parsha, to take an aspect of Har Sinai and to be able to carry it with us wherever we go. I think that model is so apt. That's what it means to try to be engaged in the work of building Jewish community, obviously principally in Eretz Yisrael, Medina Yisrael, but I think also in any Jewish community where Klal Yisrael will live. I mean, that's the model. Instead of Kadosh Baruch Hu, though Kadosh Baruch Hu, we already have in Shirat Hayam, Mikdash Hashem konenu yadecha. There's already an idea to Hashem. And nonetheless, when they finally hear about the Makom HaMikdash as a mitzvah, it starts off as something portable that can be constructed and then, if necessary, dismantled, but transported and reconstructed wherever Klal Yisrael might find themselves. So for me, I do view my shul, I view shuls in general, not only as Mikdashei Ma'at, qua the Gemara in Megillah, but as undeclared embassies, I would say, of Medinat Yisrael in a certain way, not only because of the kivun of the shul, Tarte Mashma, meaning the direction of it facing Eretz Yisrael, but also in terms of the notion, which is a halachic concept, that we need to feel connected to this place. And to me, Haretzion in the yeshiva, you didn't ask me to say anything favorable per se about the yeshiva, we're just having a chat here today, but min halev, I can say the yeshiva really helped implant that within me. I won't give it exclusive credit, family and Rebbeim when I was growing up, but the yeshiva helped cement that for me.
The Beit HaMikdash is, as you said, is a locus of Kedusha and a saturated presence of Hashem. But it's not just the building, there are kohanim in the Beit HaMikdash, and people you walk into and you look up to and you're inspired by. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows we had some impressive kohanim in our Beit HaMikdash.
Very impressive.
Is there some memory? I mean, I'm sure your mind floods when I say the name of Aaron Lichtenstein. Your mind floods and is overwhelmed with this kopit. But what's the memory that you return to, first moment when you're in a time of crisis, you're trying to accomplish something in your community, in your life, this is my
Wow.
source of strength. Is there that story that...
You're right about the flooding. Many different stories and episodes. At a time of crisis, and unfortunately, as is the case for many people, there have been many, but I'm sometimes of necessity. I'm there when it happens to other people, and I carry that with me vicariously, and sometimes more than vicariously. I'll tell you the truth, it's maybe not as intellectual an answer as maybe one would imagine. I think of Rav Amital beginning a Chatzi Kaddish, vowing for the Amid. Recognizing his life story and also what he built. It's not to say that Rav Aaron Zatzal doesn't also inform me in those moments in terms of being grounded and rooted and trying to appreciate the need for empathy and also to appreciate the complexity of whatever circumstance an other may be encountering. But to me, if you ask me the moment of crisis, like in the crucible, what comes to mind first, viscerally, it's certainly the tefillah of Moreinu v'Rabbeinu Rav Amital Zatzal.
Yeah. They say about Rabbi Saul Salanter, Rabbi Yitzchak, at least what I read, I obviously never heard him speak, that somehow when he was speaking to people on Shani Yom Kippur, it felt more like a triangle than a line.
Yeah.
When you're speaking to the people, you're giving Divrei Hisaros and Moshe, it felt like he was talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and then talking to the people, and talking to the people and talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And there's this triangle you were part of. I remember that with Rav Amital. He would talk to us on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, but he started talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he started crying and pleading, and he brought the Rebbeinu Shalom into the room. He was in the room with us. Or remember his davening, and I mean, I still hear his voice in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur because I had the privilege to be there for 20, 30 tefillahs, and I know the 5 or 6 moments during his tefillah that he just broke and he cried. And he just started crying. And I just feel him looking at me and davening with me to this day. And he said it's just powerful how tefillah changes you and changes your life in ways that, let's say, the ideas that we're all exposed to.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Can I tell you something along those lines? And this may come as a bit of a surprise. I didn't hear Rav Amital daven for the Amid 20, 30 years. I heard it once. One Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. That was all I was zocheh to. And I can tell you what a powerful impact it had from the beginning of Slichus and through the Yom Noraim. That, to me, was absolutely life-changing. You say, what about everything else we're learning? There was something there, exactly along with what you're saying. And it had a great impact on me and informs me still. And even yesterday, Zoch in the Beit Midrash, Rav Brin, Davin Musaf.
Oh, wow. Shabbos Mevarchim?
Yeah, Shabbos Mevarchim. I was thinking like, and I don't know how to convey it in words. Even we're having a conversation about it, but it's like reading a book about swimming a little bit. You have to actually get in the pool to figure out what that experience means. Be immersed in it.
It interests me that you're involved in community building, and I'm sure you think, and you're such a thoughtful and nuanced thinker, and you're such an inspiring leader. And Teruma is where it starts, where Kadosh Baruch Hu could have dispatched this celestial Mishkan, golden and ornate, hovering down over the people. But he said, I want you to build it. Now, in part, it's a corrective against the mob rule of Kitisa. So just learn to generate neutral energy towards something more productive, more holy, more sacred. But outside of the corrective for the ego, how do you build community? What's the power of the community? We're living in a world of polarized politics and individualized expression. Everyone's got their phones and their screens, and it's harder. I'm sure you think about that a lot as someone trying to build a community. Here the community's built in. We have an institution, we have a building, people come and willingly submit at a very younger age to be part of a community. What does it mean to build a community with people of different ages, different walks of life? How have you navigated that process?
That's why we read Parshat Teruma every year, not only because of the Seder Parshiot, but because I think the process is still unfolding. And certainly the period we're in now of COVID, which we're still in the middle of. I want to believe we're at the end, but I already believed we're at the end a few times.
We're at the end of Omicron.
We're at the end of Omicron. So there's still a number of letters, I think, in the Greek alphabet that haven't been...
Like comma, stuff.
A little more. Yeah, okay, we're not at Omega just yet. But exactly along the lines of what you say, there could have been something built in the clouds, from the clouds, that emerged from the clouds. Kadosh Baruch Hu is a kol yachol, he could have done it that way. I think that's what Chazal mean in the Medrash at the beginning of the Parsha, that Moshe Rabbeinu is just, if I could say it in my colloquial language, just scratching his head. This is what you want, Kadosh Baruch Hu? Lo kshatas savur, ela kach ani savur, you know? And it's not just that, but Moshe Rabbeinu also is wondering because, according to the Medrash, he also sees Shlomo HaMelech building a Mikdash that's regal and rooted, and it's actually on the Har Hashem, and he just can't understand. And then, of course, the quotation there in the Medrash from, you know, Hashemayim Shmei Shemaim Lo Yichal Kelucha, etc. So, what does Hashem say? No. You can do this. Take it's crush him here and crush him there, 20 crush him this side, that. A Mikdash Me'at should be a place where every Jew can encounter a Kadosh Baruch Hu. The Jew who is extremely learned and the Jew who does not yet know what they don't know. All of us. By the way, you just reminded me of a story. Rav Lichtenstein, I was already in the Rabbanis. He came to Chicago, and we had a meeting of a few Rabbanim together at the CRC. And I asked him a question. I don't remember what the question exactly was. This particular question, he turned to me and he said something like, "You and I are involved in Vodas HaKodesh, and we are all Amaratzim to a certain extent." I remember when he said those words, he was looking me in the eye. I almost fell out of my chair. I felt woozy, like, we're all Amaratzim to a certain extent? We're in the same sentence? What? But the idea that a makom, that is a place, a makom HaMikdash, which, as you were mentioning a little earlier this morning, we were talking, needs to be a place of avodat Hashem, not only in tefillah, but also in Talmud Torah. That there's an ongoing dialogue that every Jew has with Klal Yisrael, means that Klal Yisrael is united around the dialogue with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Exactly that triangle that we sometimes, you mentioned from Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, B'ditchever, but the idea that that should be going on for every Jew when they come to shul. We're living in challenging times. We are living in challenging times, but we've lived through challenging times before. And this parsha comes around again and again. In your version of Midbar, for some people it's a Jew who lives in a town that has no Jewish infrastructure. For other people, they live in a place of such distraction that the winds are constantly blowing, the cultural winds, etc. They can't focus themselves. Sometimes there are horns blowing in the background in Har Yehuda, whatever it is. It's not going to be celestial. It's going to look very corporeal. And you know, I will say that one of the things that I hope our shul stands for, and shuls like it stand for, it's one of the last places in America where old and young get together in the same place to engage the same activity in unison. Where people who are more religious, less religious. However they define that, but as we know what the standard is, but Basher Haim Sham, people can find a way to engage Ribono Shel Olam and to feel his presence. You know, that's the vision, and but the road to get there is not just a lofty celestial one. There's some very pragmatic elements to it. So, I mean, what's your sense? You've been away from America now for decades. You're looking a
long time. When you talked about generations, it interests me from an Israeli standpoint, because I think there are challenges here. I think as an immigrant, it's harder for me to convey the sense of Masorah, what I went through, what my communities were built on, what their traditions were. It's a different language, it's a different approach, and it's a struggle. I think that's why so many people who move to Israel face challenges in raising their kids. In America, there's a tradition and there's a road to take, and you end up living in the shul and in the community with your parents or with your grandparents. That itself is being fissured because of transportation and communication. And when you talked about being in the same, I've been involved for the last 30 years with interviewing boys for the yeshiva, and I have a hidden rule. They don't know about it, but when I ask them about their family life, and they ask me about it, and I say, well, oh, my grandfather lives with us in the house, or he shares a room with me, I put a little check. He gets accepted to the yeshiva, because there's so much more that a grandfather can give that I can't give in a sefer, or a grandparent for that matter, and sharing a room with a grandfather on top of that, sharing space and tending to an older person. And we're missing that because of the modern world. We're missing because 150 years ago you lived in the same house of your grandparents, 100 years ago in the same city, 80 years ago, same block, 80 years ago, same city. Now we're scattered.
We're on the same planet. It's good enough. It's the best we can do.
At least terrestrial. That's, we're on the same planet emotionally. But that's the only way our kids view us. But it's so heartening to hear that you're creating that intergenerational dynamic. I thought about Yaakov Avinu, where Torah describes how did they find the Yatzei Shittim? Where were the Yatzei Shittim from? And Yaakov had already prepared these Yatzei Shittim several generations earlier, which showed foresight and vision and redemptive sensitivity, even within slavery. But they weren't just connecting with someone, they were connecting with the grandfather. And they brought their grandfather into that process of building the Mishkan. It wasn't just a house of Hashem, it was a house of our Avos, that they had Mikdash Hashem Kunei Yadecha, that they have envisioned Beis Elokim Shar Hashemayim, and now they were contributing to. So it's nice to hear that you're able to create that dynamic.
Let me just qualify. I don't know that I'm able to. I give it really as the credit to, I could say, I know it firsthand from the shul that I get to daven at, and sometimes teach Torah at, and celebrate smachot, sometimes to be there for people, as I mentioned earlier, not in the best of times. It's really credit to a sense of community that's fostered davka by balabatim. Yes, a mikdash needs kohanim, but it also needs people who come with their votive offerings and with their peklach, if you will, and to be able to put those peklach sometimes down, and sometimes to raise them up, to put them down in order to engage in Avodat Hashem, don't have anything being held in hand, if you will. Their baggage laid aside, but other times they come with the baggage. Hashem's waiting for them it was waiting for them. That's my emunah. It's waiting for us, all of us, and we're trying to do that together.
The content of davening is a regular conversation.
I need to feel it. That's the idea. I'm curious about something else that you mentioned, in terms of Masorah and the like. So we could chart different times in Jewish history that, things shifted, and we're dealing with a world now. I think we were once on a panel together a few years ago in New York, BC, as I like to call it. It's like a different kufa in world history, where because of the instantaneity of communication and the like, and on one level there is more connection that people have. I know my shul, it was a Zoom shiurim. It's amazing. It's great. But on another level, like, we're missing part of that personal connection. And lahavdol, I come back to the yeshiva. I feel the presence of Rav Aaron Zatzal and of Rav Amital Zatzal. I know, of course, there's a great degree of continuity. They selected the new Rosh Yeshiva, are amazing in their own right, each of them. A part of me, though, feels almost like we're engaging in some kind of almost nostalgia, like this is what the yeshiva was, and I'm always concerned on a certain level, even speaking with my own family, not to create an atmosphere like the best years are somehow behind us, but as Browning might have said, Browning might have quoted, the best is yet to be. And to have a sense, I think one of the things I also took from Rav Aaron was the sense, he had a real sense of optimism.
Sure, humanism, optimism.
Humanist, yeah, but there was a real, to me, that's an aspect that I think is so important in the time of continuity, is to speak about the Yaakov Avinu who set up these Atzei Shittim, took them from Eretz Yisrael, he turned them upside down. I was told, my shul, he turned it upside down and said, made in Israel, But I mean, the little children ask, what's this for? So we had a Zayda, Dori Doris. They come, what's this for? There's going to be a mitzvah. Just wait, it's coming. What is it? We're out of that. We're going to build the repository of how we'll serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we'll get to the next place. We get to finally the Har Hashem. There we'll build a mikdash. It's v'chein ta'asu. Rashi quotes there that Shlomo builds it in the same dugma. And on a certain level, there's also some element in how to navigate that element of, I don't call it innovation really, but sort of there is an element of hitchadshut that's going on. And it's I hear the words of Aaron, sort of echoing in my mind. Timidim kesidram musafim kehilchatam. It does have to be with a certain sense of continuity, but whatever you're adding, you better make sure that it's within a certain miskaret and a certain masorah. And I'm wondering how you feel about the yeshiva today. I don't want to turn the tables here, but I'm curious because you live through, let's say, the door of the Miyazdim, and now a new door. Do you feel that there's an element of sort of a new ruach in the yeshiva in a certain way? Obviously, it's carrying the continuity of the Rosh Yeshiva who founded it, or do you feel that the yeshiva's different now? Obviously, they're not here. I understand, but.
Look, it's a great question. We're butting up against our 18, 20-minute limit for these conversations.
But I have questions too.
Very briefly. I think the difference between Gedolim and Ktanim, and I'm still leaving myself as a Katan, is that Ktanim more or less affect one generation. I have Talmidim, I'll affect them, I'll affect their families, hopefully, I'll affect their lives. Gedolim have Talmidim and Talmidim. So there's an intergenerational sway. They'll affect 2 generations in their vicinity, possibly 3. So obviously they're not with us and we're moving forward, but because this is an institution of continuity, most institutions, you have great people, they build a great institution, then they pass and move on, and then someone else comes along, either after a caretaker or immediately, they press the institutional reset button, and you basically clean the table and start afresh with new values. Here, our MO, our DNA is continuity. The same stories, same legends, the same feeling, the same. And I do think that their sway and their influence is still being felt, not in a way that's entrapping or that imprisons us in the past, but I think people feel that they're still operating on this mountain where these great visionaries and great pioneers made revolutionary changes. That being said, I think every revolutionary, by the very nature of their revolution, never gets to reap the benefits of the revolution. It takes a while for the ideas to become embedded and institutionalized and for institutions to catch up with those ideas. I think the Rav was pretty much very similar to that. If you walked into YU in his heyday in the mid-60s, how many people were at Night Seder? 5, 10? And today, thank God, there are hundreds and hundreds of boys at Night Seder. So YU was influenced by Rabbi Soloveitchik, his Talmidim, but it emerged and distilled as an institution representing those values only after the Rav passed. So great people probably are forever, not cursed, but condemned, never to fully appreciate. To be like Moshe Rabbeinu's saga. He didn't come to Eretz Yisrael and he didn't see the fulfillment of all of his dreams. So I do think that their sway is felt. I feel that this institution this is not about Yeshivat HaRetzion, but I feel it's run much better than it was in our day. We're accomplishing much more than we ever did because the institution has matured. We're institutionally very sound. There are great people involved in many different departments. I think, to use a little bit of a basketball expression, if you put Kobe, Shalom, and Shaq on the same team, you put 3 other people on the team, you win the championship. I think we need to have a solid team and a solid plan and a solid strategy and solid coaching and solid coordination because we're not driven by these charismatic all-stars. We're driven just by solid people who form a consensus and try to move the institution forward. Obviously, you want to be receptive to changes on the horizon, but still maintain your tradition. But I hope we're doing a good job. I hope we have a little bit of vision. We look out at those mountains.
Beautiful.
And we look back at our yeshiva that anchors us and we're able to pull it off. But wow, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
This is just the first installment. This is Bava Kama. So come back from Bava Metzia and visit us again. And we'll
get
you into the hot seat.
Look forward to it. I like at least we're orienting ourselves with Sachas of Shas and not with waves of COVID. So that's good.
Okay. So it's
some of the right direction. It's good things.
Tinyana Kama, Tinyana Basa, Madura Kama, Madura Basa.
I look forward to it.
Thank you, Rabbi Engel.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.